Hey, welcome back. I know it's been a while, but I'm back with a new video. And today I want to talk about how I made the rope bridge in my latest render. So here I have a basic block out of my scene with the water and the two riverbanks on each side. And I also have these two posts on each side and this character that I exported from Unreal Engine that I'm using for the scale. So I'm going to switch to solid display and hide the water for right now so I can create the bridge. And to do that, I'll start by making a single plank. So I'll hit Shift A and add a plane here at the origin. And I'll set the size to 1.22 meters, which is about 4 feet. And then I'll scale it in the Y direction to 0.1, which will make it about 4 inches wide. And then I'll switch to edit mode and extrude it up 0.025, which is about 1 inch thick. Then I'll switch back to object mode, hit Control A, and apply rotation and scale, just to make sure there won't be any problems moving forward. Next, I'll hit Shift A and add a curve path. But you see it's sitting on the X-axis, and I need it to be on the Y-axis. So I'll come down here and set the rotation around Z to 90 degrees. And now it's going in the right direction. So now I'll select the plank, go to the modifier panel and add a generate array modifier. But it's trying to create the array in the X direction and I need it to be in the Y direction. So I'll set the factor Y to 1 and the factor X to 0. And I'll set fit type to fit curve. And then click on the eyedropper and select the path as the object. But now it's pushed the whole array over to one side, and I want the bridge to be centered on the path. So I'll go back to the modifier panel and add a deform curve modifier. And I'll click on the eyedropper and then select the path as the curve object. And now the bridge is centered and extending the length of the path. But the planks are all right next to each other, so I need to create some space between them. So we'll go back to the array modifier and increase the factor Y setting. And I found that a setting of 1.4 seems to work pretty well for this. And now I need to make the bridge longer. So in object mode, I'll select the path and the bridge, and I'll hit the number 3 key on the number pad to switch to side view, and then I'll move them up to approximately where I want the bridge. And now I need to zoom in and select only the path, and then switch to edit mode and use the scale tool to increase the length of the bridge. And I'll hit the number 7 key on the number pad to switch to top view, and I'll move and scale the bridge until the end planks overlap the riverbanks equally on both sides. And now I need to make the bridge sag in the middle, so I'll hit the number 3 key on the number pad to switch to side view. Then I'll select these 3 points in the middle and use the move tool to pull them down a little bit. And then I'll select this one in the middle and pull it down a little more. And I'll keep doing this until I get something that looks good. Then I'll zoom in here and switch to object mode. Select the planks and add a bevel modifier. And I'll set the amount to 0.003 and set the segments to 2 so it breaks the sharp edge a little bit. And now with everything set, I'll apply the array modifier and then apply the curve modifier in that order. Don't apply the curve modifier first or it will break the curve and screw everything up. And then lastly, I'll apply the bevel modifier and then right-click and convert to mesh. And I'll name it bridge so that I know what it is. So now I have this bridge, but there's nothing supporting it, so I need to create some rope underneath. And I still have this NURBS path that has the correct curve and length, so I'm going to use it to create the rope. So I'll select it and then right-click and convert to curve. And now I can come over here to the Object Data Properties, Geometry section, and then under Bevel, I'll set the depth to 0.014. And then I'll right click and convert to mesh. And then I'll right click again and set origin to geometry. And now I just need to move it down a little bit so it's underneath the planks. But I don't want the rope running down the center. I want one rope on each side of the bridge. So I'll move this one over to about here so that it lines up with the edge of the post. Then I'll right click and set origin to 3D cursor. And then I'll add a mirror modifier across Y and then apply the modifier. And now I can switch to edit mode, edge selection, and switch the transform orientation to normal. Then I'll hit the number 3 key on the number pad to switch to side view and hit Alt Z to get into X-ray mode. And now I can select these edges and pull them out a little more. And I'll do the same thing over here on this end. And then I'm going to name this object rope so that I know what it is. And then I'll hit Alt Z to get out of X-ray mode and switch the transform orientation back to global. And I'm going to switch to object mode, select everything and move it up just a little bit. So now I have this bridge, but I need all the planks to be individual objects so I can randomize them. So I'll select the bridge, go back to edit mode, then hit P and choose separate by loose parts. And now if I go back to object mode, you see that each plank is now its own object. And now I'm going to hit the number 7 key on the number pad to switch to top view and select all the planks. And I'll deselect these riverbanks and the character, but that deselected everything. So let's try that again. Select everything, deselect the riverbanks and the character, and again everything is deselected. So let's try it a third time. Select everything, deselect the riverbanks, and I'll rotate around here and deselect the character. And now just the bridge is selected. So I'll go to the object menu, transform, and choose randomize transform. And now I can make small adjustments to the location, rotation, and scale of each object. So I'll make sure randomize location is enabled, and I'll set the X location to 0.02. And I'll also set the Y location to 0.02. And that's giving me some nice randomization. I don't want to adjust the Z value because I need the planks to stay on top of the ropes. But I can adjust the scale on X to 1.02 to make each plank slightly longer and shorter. And I'll set the rotation on Z to 0.3 degrees. To get just a little more randomization. And I think that's looking pretty good. So with everything still selected, I'll right click and join everything back together. But apparently Blender doesn't want to cooperate with me today, so let's try that again. Right click and join. But the objects aren't joining together. So let's come over here, select this first one, scroll down, and shift select the last one, then right click, click select, just to be sure, then right click again and join. And now they're all one object. And I'll rename it back to bridge. And now I'm going to select the ropes, hit Shift D to duplicate, and then drag them up here. Something like that. And I'll select these posts and move them in a little bit. And also these on the other end. Now this next part is a bit of a hack. I didn't want to do a lot of work to make it perfectly realistic because this is just a rendering, not an animation. And you're only going to see this thing from one angle. And it's going to be dark. So it's not really that visible. So this is what I did. I selected these posts, switched to edit mode, and used the loop cut tool to create an edge loop. Then I hit Shift D to duplicate it, then hit P and separate by selection. Then I selected this edge loop, right click and dissolve edges. And now if I hide the post, you see I have this edge loop here that I can use. So I'm going to right click and set origin to geometry. Then I'll slide it down until it's even with the rope. And now with the edge loop in position, I'll use the scale tool and scale it out a little bit to 1.14 on X and Y. Then I'll right click and convert to curve. And now I can come over to the object data properties and set the depth to 0.014. Then right click and convert to mesh. And now I'm going to hit Control A and apply rotation and scale just to make sure I don't have any problems. And now I'll add an array modifier. Set the factor Z to -1 and factor X to 0. Then I'll set the count to 5 and apply the modifier. And then I'll hit Shift D to duplicate and drag it down to the bottom. Then I'll select both objects, right click and join. And then I'll right click and set origin to 3D cursor. Then I'll hit Shift D to duplicate, then right click and mirror across X local. Then I'll select the other rope coils, right click and join. And it looks like I have flipped faces now. So I'll switch to edit mode, hit Alt Z for X-ray mode, select all the faces, right click, go to mesh tools and flip normals. And now I'll switch back to object mode, hit Alt Z to get out of X-ray mode, and I'll zoom out, hit Shift D to duplicate, right click and mirror across Y local. And then I'll select these, right click and shade smooth. And I'll do the same thing for these. And now I just need to make sure that the end of the ropes match up with the coils at each end. And they look pretty good on this end. But they're not looking too good on this end. So I'm going to right click and set origin to geometry. And I'll just move them up until they line up. So yeah, it's kind of a hack, but from a distance in the dark, you really can't tell. And you can always take your render into Photoshop and touch up where the ropes meet if you have any harsh edges that are visible or anything weird happening. So now with all that done, there's only one more thing I need to do. I need to make some support ropes. So I'll select these top ropes and then switch to edit mode. And I want to select this edge loop right here in the middle. Then I'll hit Shift D to duplicate, then hit P and separate by selection. Then I'll switch to object mode, select the edge loop, right click and set origin to geometry. And then I'll zoom in a little closer, but my navigation is getting a little squirrely, so I'm going to hit the period key on the number pad to zoom in on the selected object. And that will give me more control over my navigation. And now I'm going to scale the edge loop up to 1.6 on X and Z. And I'm going to switch to edit mode and select this edge and then right click and delete it so I can start building out the support rope. So I'll switch to vertex selection, and I'll grab this vertex and drag it straight down here. And I'll hit the number 1 key on the number pad to switch to front view so I can make sure I'm pulling the vertex straight down. Then I'll grab this vertex and hit E for extrude and drag it down here. And then I'll grab this one again and extrude it down also. Then I'll go back to object mode and I'll hit Shift D and create a duplicate. And then I'll move it down here, rotate 180 degrees, and move it into position. Then I'll select both of them, right click and join. And then right click again and convert to curve. And now I can go to the object data properties and set the depth to 0.005. And it's looking a little thin, so I'll scale it out to 1.5 in the Y direction. And that looks about right, so I'll right click and convert to mesh. And now I want to cap these ends, so I'll switch to edit mode, select this edge loop, and hit F to fill the hole. And then I'll inset a little bit, and I'll also add a support loop here. And I'll add another support loop here. But you see this one is slanted, so with the edge loop selected, I'll hit S for scale, then Z for the Z axis, and then hit 0, and then hit enter. And that will flatten it out. And I'll do the same for this edge loop. Select it, hit S, then Z, then 0, and then enter. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this end. And now I'll select this edge loop and this edge loop up here. Although my navigation is getting squirrely again. Okay, select this edge. Then with both edges selected, I'll come up to the edge menu and bridge edge loops. And now I just need to make some adjustments to get everything looking right using X-ray mode and moving edge loops until it looks the way I want it. And that's about it for the ropes. Now I just need to make some metal clamps. And I'll select both of these bottom edges and then hit S and Z and 0 and enter. So they're lined up. And I'll do the same for these two top edges. And now I need to grab these faces and move them over so they're closer to the other one. And now I can create the clamp. So I'll grab all these faces and Shift D to duplicate, and then hit P and separate by selection. Then I'll switch to object mode and select the new object, switch back to edit mode, and then select all the faces. Then hit Alt E and choose extrude faces along normals. And then just drag your mouse to extrude out a little. And now I just need to do a little bit of cleanup. So I'll hide the rope for a minute because I need to delete some of these faces. Then I'll select these edges and scale them out to create a little distance between them. Then I'll select these edges and bridge edge loops. And then select these edges and do the same. And then I'll do the same for this one. And also these on this other end. Then I'll select this open edge loop and hit F to fill the hole. Then I'll add an edge loop here and pull it up a little bit. And the same on the other end. And then I'll add a couple support edges here and also here. Then I'll unhide the rope and I'll pull this end down a little bit. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So with the clamp selected, I'll hit Control A and reset scale and rotation. Then right click and set origin to geometry. Then I'll hit Shift D to duplicate it and drag it down here to the other end. And I see I still need to adjust this end of the rope, so I'll switch to edit mode and make the adjustments. And now I can select the clamps and join them together. And I'll join them together with the rope also. And now I can unhide the bridge and then select the support and move it over so it's not going through the plank. Then I'll hit number 3 on the number pad to jump into side view. Then Shift D to duplicate the support and move it over to where I want it. And then just repeat the process to continue adding them along the length of the rope. And once you have them all placed on one side, you can select them all and join them all together. Then right-click and set origin to 3D cursor. Then Shift D to duplicate. Then right-click and mirror across Y local. And if you don't like how chunky they look, you can always add a subdivision surface modifier to smooth them out. Then unhide the water, and you're done. Okay, that's about it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post them below. And as always, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.